I can't, sorry, I can't. I have to stop. TikToker. Just listen to it. What the heck? oh, hold on. You absolute... I don't have keys to jingle. Hey noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and today I'm doing the unconceivable. I'm doing the impossible. I'm going to spend the next 10 minutes, 20, what have you. I'm going to check TikTok to see what sort of historical education we get on that platform. I've already made a video like this a while ago, which was an absolute atrocious torture for me. Literally, that's what TikTok is, a legal torture device. But here we are. Here we are. Let's see, maybe I'm gonna change my mind, and instead I'm gonna be educated, and you know, the sort of TikToks I'm gonna talk to me about ancient Rome and ancient Greece and the medieval period. It's going to be great. Today we're gonna have a great time. This is your fault. Stop liking my videos. TikTok account Simply Stated History made a video, a TikTok, whatever it's called, crazy facts about ancient Rome. Well, let's see.
Crazy facts about ancient Rome. The founder of Rome was known as Romulus, and the last Roman emperor was also known as Romulus. As for the Eastern Roman Empire, or the Byzantine Empire, the first emperor was Constantine, and the last was also named Constantine.
Okay, so this is not too bad. It's not too bad. So he's right that the founder of Rome is traditionally, according to the mythology, is traditionally named Romulus, and then yes, the last emperor of the Western Roman Empire would be Romulus Augustus, so he's correct with that. He's a little incorrect when he talks about the first emperor of the Byzantine Empire, because I think he's referring to Constantine I, so the one that founded Constantinople in 330. The problem is that at that time the empire was still united, because he left to wait until 395, so technically not exactly the most correct thing to, like, why would you choose that one specifically? But then again, this is not too bad. I thought worse. We're starting well.
The male head of the Roman family, mainly the father, could legally kill his own child. If a father was angered by his child, he could disown him, sell him, or even kill him.
Yes, that's correct. So he's talking about the pater familias, and specifically the right called vitae necisque potestas. It is absolutely true, according to Roman law, that the father in a family, the pater, actually could decide to kill his own child or even sell him or turn him into a priest, but that would be dependent on the sort of crimes that the son would have committed within Roman law. But then again, pretty good, pretty accurate. Next one.
They're blonde. The wealthy Romans would hire someone to vomit during feasts so they could eat more. Cleanliness was...
Hold on. Hold on a minute. Okay. So the vomiting thing is a very popular thing, is something that people say a lot. There is some truth to it, and I'll tell you about the sources in a minute, but I'm a little confused here, because usually what you hear is, oh, the ancient Romans ate so much, and they loved eating so much that they would just stuff themselves and they would vomit so that they can eat again. This is mentioned in the sources, so it's not a myth, and it's mentioned in Seneca, but he's talking about wealthy Romans. So already saying, oh, the ancient Romans, now hold on a minute, poor people, middle class, they wouldn't do that. It's a form of debauchery mentioned. In fact, it's mentioned in a negative key in the sources, and Seneca says, oh, look at these people, they eat that they may vomit, and they vomit that they may eat. That's the passage, but he's specifically talking about rich people. How rich, you ask? Well, Suetonius mentions specifically Emperor Claudius. Is that rich enough for you? The idea being that Suetonius tells us that Emperor Claudius enjoyed eating so much stuff that was like from faraway land and expensive spices, and then he liked it, and at one point he would use a feather down his throat so he would throw up and eat again. So once again, it's mentioned as a form of debauchery of the upper classes. But what I don't understand here, he's saying, I need to listen to it again, but didn't he say they hired someone to vomit for them? What the heck?
Wealthy Romans would hire someone to vomit during feasts so they could eat.
So they could eat
more.
What the hell? What? Okay, TikToker, just listen to it. Hold on a minute. I just need your attention span for 5 seconds. I don't have keys to jingle, but bear with me. Say you're a wealthy Roman and you just ate a lot of food and you really liked it, and you're like, oh, I really want to be able to eat more, but I'm not hungry anymore. What should I do? Oh, here's an idea. Let me hire Antoninus over here. Here is some money. Here is some sesterzi. Please vomit for me. And then the guy was like, he vomits. Oh, good. Now I feel so much. How does that work? You absolute reason and logic. Not on TikTok. Okay. Thank you. What's the next? They hired someone to vomit.
Cleanliness was a priority for the...
I should hire you to vomit. Right, so if I want to eat more, I just need to hire someone on TikTok so I may vomit after hearing this, and then I can eat again. Thank you. Cleanliness. Next. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Oh, her audience asked her to add magnets on her armor and she's doing it. That's fine. I mean, she's cute. The armor is, of course, it's a fantasy for LARP, which is nothing wrong with it if that's what you're doing. If you're doing LARP and you want to wear your fantasy set of armor, play whatever D&D you're playing, it's fine. It's okay. I think it's a cute TikTok. Nothing wrong with it. Very cute, very cute. Yeah, this one was nice. TikTok from Daily Medieval.
Did you know that knights in medieval times often wore heavy armor weighing up to 60 pounds? This armor, known as plate armor.
Oh gosh, already I hate the sort of computer-generated voice. I mean, flipping heck, buy a microphone and speak. The other thing is that the entirety of the shots that we are seeing here, he's moving them very fast, but what I'm seeing is mostly fantasy. Also, you're saying that they were wearing heavy armor up to 60 pounds. Yes. But then again, yeah, 55 would be more of the norm for field harnesses. When it comes to weight, particularly if you're making a TikTok, so you need to speak very fast because you've got only a little bit of time, I suppose. It's kind of dangerous to speak about specific weights because it will vary a lot. A field harness, 50 pounds, 55 the heaviest. A jousting harness can go up twice as much, even 80 pounds, sometimes even 100 pounds, but that's just for jousting, so heavily reinforced plates. But yeah, I don't know why he's showing fantasy stuff.
Was composed of multiple layers of metal plates meticulously crafted to provide maximum protection on the battlefield. While effective in deflecting blows from swords, axes, and spears, wearing such heavy armor required significant strength and endurance from knights, making battles physically demanding and exhausting. Follow?
Sure, but I think sometimes we over-exaggerate that because we think, oh my gosh, only a knight who trained since he was 7, which they did, could bear the weight of these such heavy suits of armor. No, because when you think about that, first of all, I can bear, I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I'm like a featherweight compared to, and also when it comes to athletic preparation, I'm absolutely nothing compared to a medieval knight, and I can wear a full suit of armor. I can wear it, and if you pay me, I'll wear it for a whole day. I'll do it. But I can do it, so even men at arms, even like soldiers that were knighted and perhaps didn't receive the same level of training of knights could sustain a full suit of plate armor. Even archers would wear plate armor. Also because remember, yes, when you look at 60 pounds, 55 pounds, you think, wow, that's so heavy. But then again, the way it's distributed over your body puts you in a position where, if you ask me, I would rather wear my plate armor or harness rather than carrying it. Because if I need to carry it, oh my gosh, that's a lot. It's very heavy and it's gonna get me tired. But if I wear it, it's tailored at the waist, that so much of the weight won't be on my shoulders, but it's correctly placed. You know, it's different. It's different. And then there were so many different configurations. But yeah.
Follow for daily medieval facts.
Cleanliness was a priority for the Romans, but they didn't use soap. Instead, they rubbed perfumed oils on their skin and scraped it off with a tool called a strigil.
Yeah, that's true. With the soap part, there is a little bit to say about that because it kind of depends on where and when we're talking about. But in general, it is true. But then again, let's remember that they did clean themselves in the baths, and they also, at the end of the day, used water. Of course, it's not as effective as using soap. Soap becomes more popular in the medieval period. That's correct. But yeah, they would use oil, and then of course they would wash it off though. Like sometimes people say that, oh, it's gross. So they just put oil when they've got dirty hands and they just leave it on. No. Whatever. Next TikTok, please. I can't. Sorry, I can't. I have to stop this one. I can't do it. I just can't do it. Dirty facts about ancient Greek from Wonderwave.
Dirty facts about ancient Greece. You didn't know. People wiped themselves with stones. Like the Romans, the Greeks would sometimes clean themselves with a sponge attached to a stick. But not every Greek was so lucky. More often, the Greeks would clean themselves with stones.
Okay, so he does have a point. I know it sounds strange, he does have a point. Just let me clarify a little bit. The Greek term for this is pesos, and kind of means a small little stone. We do have mentions of these, and they are found also in some, not only in some sources, but also on some vases. Although it's important to underline the fact that they would have been very small stones and they would have been made smooth. So do imagine that. We're talking about very smooth stones. We have, for example, an image on a kylix from the 6th century BC. For context, that's like a cup that you use for drinking wine, and that's the art that you would have on that cup. Even though we do have mentions in literature of these stones, as I was saying, when it comes to the archaeological record and material goods, we only have ever found ceramics that was used for this. Yeah, I know. But that's what we have, just a little detail. The real question, however, here is not why they would use stones. I mean, at the end of the day, they didn't have toilet paper. The real question is, why the heck would an ancient Greek want to have someone wiping himself on his wine-drinking cup? That I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. Oh, not again. The cat is back. If you're enjoying this video so far, please take a moment to check out my Patreon page. With as little as a $5 support, you can help us ensure that we can continue to produce high quality and high researched content. And at the same time, you get access to polls, extra videos, unlisted streams, and much more. Thank you so much. From Stephen Bell.
This right here is the best suit of Roman armor. Except no, it absolutely was not. For many of us, when we were thinking about ancient Rome and classical armors, you're thinking of this, the Lorica segmentata,
Yes, and that's usually the reason why Lorica segmentata is often in the minds of people is, of course, the media, Hollywood, video games. That's the stereotypical Roman in the image of people that are connected through ancient Rome, not through the sources, but through pop culture and movie industry. So he's correct with that. I don't know why he says absolutely not when it comes to like best armor. So I imagine maybe he's going to praise mail, perhaps. Let's see.
Armor piece that was made up of segmented plates, and I mean, that's the iconic armor that is used during the Roman.
Also, the one you're showing is a cheap Indian replica, and there is much better. So I'm not sure that I used to own one of these when I started the channel 11 years ago, and I had no money whatsoever. But there are much better replicas of Roman armor. That one is not great because if you look, it looks like a cylinder, whereas Roman armor would have been tailored to the body. But let's see.
Used during the Roman imperial period. I mean, look at this. It looks fantastic, right? Surely this must have been the best armor, except it wasn't. It was just the most cost-effective.
Yeah, let's see, however, how he's going to defend that, because even though it's true that making mail or scale was a much more tedious and long, kind of time-consuming process, I imagine he's going to mention that. That's not the only reason as to why Lorica segmentata was developed. But let's see what he's going to say.
And what do I mean by that? Well, the reason that this armor became so incredibly popular during the early Roman imperial period is because the armor was super easy and cheap to assemble, even if it, technically speaking, did not offer as much protection as the other very popular form of armor, Lorica Mela, which, yeah.
Lorica Mela, I think he made a joke there. Of course, it's people would normally refer to that one as Lorica Hamata, not a period time. It's Latin, but not used in period. We think that the Romans called it Lorica Gallica because it came from the Gallic populations. That's where they got it from. I don't know why you're saying that. Like, I think this guy's cool. I like this guy. He's not like as bad as other people. You can tell that he has spent some time reviewing Roman stuff. But one thing I don't understand here is why he's saying that it doesn't offer as much protection. No, Lorica segmentata offers absolutely better protection than mail. That doesn't mean that mail is not good. A mail is a fantastic type of armor, which is why it became so popular. I don't know, he knows all of this. It became so popular and continued to stay in use not only after the first 3 centuries of the Principate, which is when Lorica segmentata was used, 3 centuries. So if it didn't offer great protection, they wouldn't have used it for 3 centuries. But yes, Hamata, there are lots of other reasons why. It's much more comfortable. I'll give you that. I've worn both, of course, and it's a lot more comfortable. I would rather wear Hamata for a whole long day of march than segmentata, but segmentata absolutely offers better protection than mail, particularly against piercing. But let's see what he says now.
Yes, that is mail. That is mail armor. The problem with this armor, though it was technically tougher and offered more protection, was simultaneously...
It really was. Like, I don't know why he's saying that. I'll tell you why segmentata was developed based on what the most educated guess is, but it did offer excellent protection, segmentata.
Obviously, it took way longer to make. Considering that segmentata was just a bunch of prefabricated strips that were cut into pieces and then after that strung together, a team of slaves that was working around the clock could make a suit of mail in anywhere between 3 weeks to a couple months. And that is way too long. Especially when you have the entirety of the known world to conquer.
I liked the ending, so no, I like the guy, but I'd like to say they absolutely managed to make mail. It was not a problem, and they could absolutely supply it and repair it on demand. Precisely because they had slaves, but they also had paid labor. Now, the reason why they moved into segmentata for a certain period of time in Rome is because it offered better protection against projectiles. That is the reason. That's what most people who are educated into this subject think. And think about it, plates that are overlapped, because in the majority of places like your core, your shoulders, the plates are overlapping. So you're getting double layers of plate protecting you against projectiles that are coming your way, sometimes even spears, although then again, Hamata did offer good protection against spears. It's not true that it doesn't offer any protection against thrusts. That's nonsense, but plate is better when it comes to that. But it's more cumbersome, it's heavier to put on and have to deal with for a long period of time. But that's why they developed it. It's because mail started to fail against certain Eastern enemies, for example the Scythians, to just mention one, that were using a lot of projectiles and ranged troops, and that became a problem in Rome, and so they're like, you know what, just do something, it gives us better protection. That's why Lorica Segmentata became a thing. So no, mail doesn't offer better protection, it's made in a different way. It is labor intensive, but it is a lot more comfortable to wear, and it still offers good protection. Next, from the account Fun Facts 101.
It was a legal requirement for prostitutes. Since most Roman women were dark-haired, and to avoid any mix-ups, a law dictated that prostitutes had to dye their hair blonde.
What law? Which law? Please tell me the law, because we looked. We did this like months ago. I've already sort of debunked it on my channel a few times. This is a massive myth. And this is one of the problems I think we have with these sort of informational TikTok channels that just repeat something that was stated by someone else, sometimes YouTubers, sometimes other TikTokers. And then this creates a sort of spiral of misinformation because no one actually sits down to check the sources. There is no such a thing as a law in ancient Rome, nowhere to be found, that dictated that prostitutes had to dye their hair blonde. It's absolutely nonsense. The popularity of this myth has to do with two specific sources, one in Ovidius and one in Juvenal, can never remember how to say his name in English, but whatever. There are two sources in ancient Rome. One mentions specifically blonde wigs, and there was a commerce in ancient Rome whereby they would buy wigs from Germania, so from like the Germanic tribes, and then Roman women, because they liked the pretty hair, they would buy these wigs and put them on. That had nothing to do with prostitution whatsoever. It was just a popular thing in ancient Rome among women. They liked it. Secondly, there is a passage in Juvenal where he's talking about a story, and at one point one of the characters in this story, they want to pretend to be a prostitute because they need to hide. It's that disguise, and to make sure that they're not recognized when they go to the brothel, they put on a blonde wig. That's all there is to it. There is no connection, neither legal, like he's stating, or in general, culturally, with the concept of, oh, if you wear blonde hair, then you're a prostitute. Nonsense. This law doesn't exist. TikTok. From Mythos History.
Most of us are familiar with the Lorica Segmentata Roman armor comprised of metal strips both tied and riveted together. However, in reality, this armor type was never the norm in the Roman Empire. Mail armor was by far the most common type, worn by both legionary and barbarian warriors alike. In fact, of all the armor types...
Yeah, auxiliary. Maybe that's what you mean by barbarian warrior, because it's true that the enemies of Rome did wear hamata, but unless we're talking Carthage, which had a very professional and fully equipped army of people with arms and armor basically the same level as the Romans, a lot of the enemies of Rome, they had the leaders and the officers and the kings and the nobles wearing hamata and armor, but the majority of the troops were just having a shield and a helmet, and the idea of having like barbarians in mail, like the entirety of the army, usually wasn't the case. Really depends on what barbarian you're talking about.
Including the relatively common scale armor, it seems that Romans...
Scale was not common. Scale existed, absolutely, it's called squamata, but it was not common. And plumata, when you connect the scales directly to mail, still, no, it wasn't common. It existed, it kind of runs out of use as you go into the late empire, but in general, you do find it in the sources, usually with officers. It was very expensive, quite exotic, in fact, even for the Romans, and but it was not common. And mail was common.
Centurions, the most skilled and experienced men on the battlefield, preferred mail armor. Unfortunately, mail armor did take a long time to produce, as every ring had to be individually created and linked together. This was offset, however, by the fact that the Romans had an enormous and cheap workforce in the form of slave labor. Also, a sweet addition to the technology made by the Romans was a mail sleeve to cover the sword arm, the only part not covered by the Romans' enormous shield.
Yeah, and then they did it also with plate, with the manica. Okay, well, not too bad though, not too bad. From the account, Armor and History are Fun.
So this is called Lorica Segmentata. It is...
Okay, so what he's doing here is, this is not him, he's re-uploading a video that has been going around for like so many years, like from 15 years ago probably, on YouTube. I'm not a huge fan of when they do this. I'd rather I'm not saying you shouldn't, but I'm saying maybe offer commentary, which is basically what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna watch this and offer commentary. Because I think just reusing other people's work, it's not great.
It's very iconic. If you've ever seen any kind of Roman media, comic books, video games, TV shows, they always depict this. In actuality, it probably only saw about 100 years worth of service.
That's what I mean. This is the old opinion, but this changed. Like, I'm talking about something from the 80s, maybe it's when they believed that, maybe 70s, when they believed that segmentata only saw use for 100 years. This has been confirmed now due to more recent archaeological findings and mentions, and we now believe firmly that segmentata was used for at least 300 years, not 100 years. So that's the problem when you re-upload something that not only is old, but it's probably outside your sphere of competence, and then you don't know how to sort of correct stuff because you're just reusing another person's thing and adding Roman breastplate with this, like, no.
Now that sounds like quite a long time, but if you imagine the Roman army was about 1,000 years, so in the grand scheme of things, it really wasn't that much. It does offer really great protection, as you can see.
And of course, I appreciate he's a reenactor, clearly the person who's speaking, and he has direct experience. I usually appreciate more. I think the best you can get is historians that also reenact. Then second, I want to put reenactors on some things when it comes to practical things, and historians that only learn from books on the actual resources and data. It's oftentimes a problem when you have a historian who speaks about practical aspects of armor and has never put one on, and it's also likewise problematic when you have a reenactor who has only personal experience but has never read the sources and then starts to talk in general about Romans coming up with kind of weird ideas. But yeah.
It's plates that are segmented, hence the name, that are overlapping, so they offer really great protection on your body. The main issue is the maintenance. There are a lot of rivets and bolts and joints that need regular looking after, and if they break, they're very difficult to repair.
I disagree that they're very difficult to repair, because one of the reasons why we see in the archaeological record, and whenever you look at any material goods of this period when it comes to Lorica segmentata, and you look at the actual connecting pins, they're always green. Notice that, they're always green. The reason is because they're a copper alloy. I hate using that. Brass, maybe pure copper sometimes, not even a copper alloy. And the reason they did that is because that makes them easier. When you have like iron tools and you want to remove a broken piece that is made of copper, it's a lot easier to do that. And also they tend to mold and move, and so you can bend them back into shape. They bend out of shape, you bend them back into shape. Whereas the actual main parts that are supposed to protect you, so the actual bands, the girth hoops, those are instead made of iron or steel, sometimes even low carbon steel, because those are the ones that need to resist penetration. But anyways.
It does look incredibly sophisticated for the time, and it especially feels like against, I don't know, a hacking weapon or perhaps a missile, that, as you say, those different sets of it, how it's little bits added all together, could help with the deflecting of enemy weapons.
Indeed, and one of the reasons why more modern replica of Lorica segmentata are even being more similar to the actual archaeological findings, and for example in my latest Lorica segmentata core bridge type A that I own, you'll notice that the shoulder plates are more curved now, more of a cup-like shape, which was precisely used to deflect blows, and it's more similar and more congruent with actual archaeological findings.
Absolutely, and they even developed ones that would go along your arms called manica that worked in very much the same way. So by the sort of very height of the Roman Empire, they were looking almost like armoured knights that you might see in the medieval period.
Well, no, I disagree with that.
Top to toe in armour.
No, you don't. Legs are most of the time, like the full legs, the thighs are not covered. Occasionally in the early Republic, sometimes some soldiers would wear one greave on the left, occasionally two greaves, but usually was one, or a demi-greave, but then they stopped doing that. And the reason why is because if you have to march and you putting a lot of armor on your legs, it's gonna be a big problem. So usually it's only officers or emperors or generals that tend to armor up a little bit their shins as well. But no, you wouldn't see, even in the height of the Roman Empire, when they were using Lorica segmentata, when they had the helmets, even the ones reinforced with the cross against the Dacians or the manica, yeah, they're still not gonna look like medieval knights. Maybe I'm being a little pedantic. Let me be a little pedantic. I'll make a shirt one day. But yeah, I wouldn't say that at any point during the ancient Roman era, the Principate, the Dominate, a Roman soldier would be as armored as a medieval knight. No. Next.
Athletes sold their sweat. Before competing, Greek athletes would take off all their clothes and cover themselves in oil.
Yes, that's correct. I don't know why you're putting it among the dirty facts, though. I mean, some people I don't see it's weird to cover yourself in oil. Stripping naked was not weird in ancient culture, because these people would have had like amazing bodies and they wanted to show them off and people wanted to see them. And also putting the oil, like when you're wrestling, if you're covered in oil, it makes it harder because everything becomes slippery. But at the end of the day, it's not dirty, it's just oil. It might have in fact have even a perfume aspect to it.
That was how they performed, whether they were running or grappling with another man. Greek athletes would do it naked. Afterward, they would sell sweat as medicine.
Yeah, that idea happens with gladiators too. Once again, let's remember this is not something that should be considered as the entire population, but there was a little bit of superstition, if you will, when it comes to gladiators. The power of their sweat, not only for like making you strong, but also with the idea of being an aphrodisiac. So yeah, there was a little bit of that. But I mean, even today, we've got people sometimes that have these sort of, oh my gosh, a black cat. Oh my gosh, I don't want to walk underneath a ladder. Well, I wouldn't want to walk underneath a ladder, not for superstition, because I don't want it to move and hit me in the head. But in general, I'm saying superstition still exists, and it existed back then. It just doesn't mean that the entire population would do that and buy. I mean, there are people that buy nonsense from streamers and influencers. How about that? Like sweat and used underwear. I mean, we do it today, but yeah. Next. If they do daily medieval facts, I imagine it means, I don't even know if they're active now, but it means they have more. So let's see if we can find another one where they're more precise.
Here is something you never knew about medieval times. In the midst of battle, amidst the clash of swords and the thunder of hooves, a silent camaraderie often bloomed between enemies. Amidst the chaos of war, acts of unexpected kindness and chivalry could shine through.
Oh gosh, chivalry stuff. So chivalry, I'll let him finish.
Reminding us that even in the darkest of times, humanity's light could still flicker. Moral of the story is, there's always some good in the bad. You just have to find it.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is, I mean, it's nice. It sounds nice, I suppose, as a motivational speech. But at the end of the day, chivalry was a thing for literature in the sense that, yes, there were some laws and codes, particularly as we reach the late medieval period. But in general, even in the early medieval period and even before the medieval period, when we look at the equus, so the sort of mounted nobility of the Roman kingdom and then the Roman Republic and so on, yes, there were some rules, there were some codes. These are military people, so there are always going to be rules. With that being said, the idea of chivalry, the way we imagine it, is a romantic interpretation. The battlefields were as crude as they can get, and in fact, even the papacy tried to make rules. For example, you're not supposed to use crossbows against Christians because you guys are killing each other too much, and we don't like that. And it didn't work. So, like, they still did it. Even fully Catholic countries were like, the Pope said what? Yeah, okay, deploy the crossbowmen, kill all those English bastards, type of thing. So yeah, that is a thing. Chivalry, I'm not saying that it completely didn't exist. It absolutely did exist, but I think you're kind of overplaying it a bit. Chivalry existed in the maybe day-to-day aristocratic life up to a certain point, but then again, on the battlefield, if you could take an advantage, if your opponent loses his weapon, you thrust him through and through, because if you lose, imagine a medieval knight that is like, oh, my opponent dropped his sword, so I'm just gonna wait for him to pick up the sword. Then he picks up the sword and defeats me. My king loses the battle. I'm still alive. I go to the king, and the king is like, what happened? I saw you back there, because sometimes king joined battles and looked from afar. I saw you there. You were winning. What happened? Oh, chivalry. I was trying to be chivalrous. Yeah, you will be put into a prison. But yeah. Acts of kindness in the medieval battlefield. I mean, once again, there were rules like don't kill prisoners, and most people abided. Not all though, because I mean, King Henry and French prisoners, it did a massacre. But yeah, people didn't like that because again, there were rules. But I think you're overplaying it. You're making it too romantic. Next. I'm not sure what I'm looking at. Oh, her audience asked her to add magnets on her armor, and she's doing it as a fan service. That's fun. I mean, she's cute. The armor is, of course, it's a fantasy for LARP, which is nothing wrong with it if that's what you're doing. If you're doing LARP and you want to wear your fantasy set of armor, play whatever D&D you're playing, it's fine. It's okay. I think it's a cute TikTok. Nothing wrong with it. Very cute, very cute. Yeah, this one was nice.
Turns out that the king's armor was truly impenetrable. No wonder ancient knights
Okay, so this is once again, it sounds like one of those AI generated voices, which already puts me off. But with that being said, the footage that they are showing here is from the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and they started shooting these in the 1920s, and then this one was released in 1924. I know that because it's one of my favorites. They're showing a very late medieval, I think it's like a end of the 16th century type of suit of armor, and because of the flexibility. Yeah, it's amazing, but I read a real image from 1924, the medieval king's armor is bulletproof, and his body weighs 100 pounds of steel. 100 pounds? It's possible. I thought it was like, because I remember watching this one. I don't remember them saying 100 pounds. I might be wrong. So let's keep watching and let's see what the voice says.
In heavy armor were so exceptional. This footage was shot in 1924, showcasing the personal
Published in 1934. I'm pedantic, remember.
Armor of medieval European kings. The helmet is made entirely of iron and automatically closes with a simple head shake. Its unique embedded design makes it impossible to pry open, no matter how much brute force you use. Surprisingly, the steel arm guards can also
impossible is a big word, but still.
Also bend easily, because traditional leather material.
Yeah, look at that. That's impressive. I love that. I mean, I love the original, not the TikTok, but I love the original footage. They did an excellent. They did so many documentaries in the. I think they have something like 1,500 short films that they have filmed since the 1920s all the way up to now, like in 100 years at the Met. Met really is still one of my favorite places to go whenever we go to New York with the wife.
Were not hard enough. This embedded structure maximizes the advantage.
Okay, but now she's saying the leather straps were not hard enough. No, leather was fine. This is just a better technology, but for example, my arms that are more of a 15th century type, late 15th century type of technology, and they absolutely use leather for the bending, and they have an opening here, which would be then covered in mail. Of course, they are less protective and less advanced. This is like the peak of the peak. You don't get anything better than this when it comes to the mobility, but the leather was fine. I mean, leather is okay, because leather is not supposed to provide protection. In this case, it's supposed just to provide the ability to bend more easily than having to craft the strips like this. As I say, this is a much higher level of tech, but then it's fine. It doesn't need to provide protection because you have mail over it.
Advantages of iron armor's hardness without making it stiff.
Also, you keep saying iron, but the majority of medieval armor, particularly when it comes to kings, in the majority of cases, I'll tell you why I'm saying majority and not all cases, but in the majority of cases it's steel, and it oftentimes is medium carbon steel. It can be hardened. It's not always hardened, but other times it is also high carbon steel, which not a great choice, but then again, there was a lot of trial and error in the medieval period. Usually high carbon is better for swords. If it's too high in the amount of carbon in the steel, it can become brittle, and you don't want that, of course. Brittle meaning, like, imagine glass, and glass is exceptionally hard, but then when you drop it, it breaks, and that's not the case with a high carbon steel suit of armor, but it could break, which is why medium carbon steels usually are the best performing ones. But when it comes to iron, there is an example of an iron helmet that I can remember specifically connected to a king for a joust of peace. But the reason why they went for iron with that one was the thickness. It was so thick that literally didn't matter. You could have made it of freaking copper. You could have made it of bronze. It would have still provided protection, because I'm talking centimeters, not even millimeters. It was insane. I don't remember the exact thickness. Maybe it was 5 centimeters, 7. It was insane. But that was an exception. In the majority of cases, when you're talking about high nobility, it's going to be steel. And some iron armor existed on the field of battle, but it was usually off-the-shelf, cheap armor for lower-end soldiers.
According to records, due to the extremely high precision required for this technology, it was strictly kept secret at the time. Only kings and noble generals were eligible to possess it. Even the hand protection is straightforward.
Yeah, it was mostly for the cost, though.
Straightforward but effective. The hand is concealed inside the iron shell, gripping freely.
Oh yeah, that's an amazing one. Then he's gonna hook it up. Yeah, this one is, it's very rare to see this. But yeah, it's nice.
With a sword or dagger, the iron shell can be closed securely, preventing it from falling off and providing hand protection.
And then you open it by touching the pin. Like, I don't know, she cut it, but if you watch the original documentary, it shows how it opens. He just pushes the pin and it opens.
Surprising is that even the foot protection is so intricate. This
Yeah, that is incredible. Look at the flexibility.
Often overlooked part is made up of dozens of rivets, forming a suit of nearly all steel heavy armor. You can see that
Oh, you did say steel now.
each component has been finely crafted and polished, and the total weight is a staggering 80 pounds. No wonder.
Well, there you go, 80 pounds. I was right. Yeah, 80. I didn't remember that it's still very heavy, but of course 80 pounds is because this is a reinforced suit for jousting. Do they even show that, like how they put on?
Under ancient heavy armored soldiers were all strong, capable of taking on multiple foes single-handedly. It's worth noting that if these were used in modern times, even walking would be quite a challenge.
Well, no. I knew that. I knew it. You can walk on these. Now, if you notice, he's putting a reinforcing breastplate. That's done specifically for the joust. You have a double layer of protection because you want to make sure that the king, doesn't die. Same for like princes. Sometimes they would have these double layers, and in Maximilian armor, this starts to become a thing, even for field suits for battle. But in general, you don't have to wear that. If you needed to walk with this, you wouldn't wear the double layer here. But in general, you still can. And in fact, the helmet that they showed, that is for foot combat. The helmet, when it was moving around like that, that was specifically for foot combat. So you can absolutely walk on with a full suit of plate. Even the ones for jousting, you can walk in them. It's not a problem. And as I have demonstrated many times wearing my full plate armor, which is also kind of heavy. It's not super heavy, but my helmet is. The frog mouth is on the heavy side. And still.
Let alone engaging in combat. Indeed.
Let alone engaging in combat. No, this stuff is designed. Oh my gosh, TikTok. Oh, my blood pressure. This stuff is designed to engage in combat. Specifically designed to engage in combat. And when it comes to even 20 armor, well, not everything is the joust. So it's a lot of these heavy suits of armor that they wear are for foot combat, and so you can absolutely swear. Even the sword you were showing, with a gauntlet, that's for foot combat. You wouldn't do that when you're on a horse. Good luck using your, this stuff is designed for you to fight in it, not to look pretty. Although you do look pretty. Extra bonus.
Technological advancements are the key factors determining the outcome of warfare in the modern age. It turns out that the king...
Oh my gosh, the ending was horrible. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, it's saying the thing about urine as a detergent, is it? Romans used urine as a cleaning agent because its ammonia content made it an effective detergent. Yeah, okay. I was worrying that they were propagating the myth about washing your teeth, but still, why the cats? Oh my gosh, this is the jingling of keys. It's like when you watch a video and there is this guy is talking, but then in the background he needs to have this sped up footage of Call of Duty with people running around and shooting this and because otherwise, for 3 seconds, and then the average TikTok user being the key word here, users, the only word that we use for people with computers and technology and people that use drugs. But anyways, will be like 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, no more attention. Oh gosh, the jingling of keys. So here you have to have the cats because otherwise you cannot literally watch. Oh, I hate that so much. Gladiators were mainly slaves, but some were volunteers seeking fame and fortune. That's correct. But the cat doing things in the... Oh my gosh. I hate it. Why can you not just focus on one thing? No, you have to have both. Because otherwise, they're going to scroll away. Okay, anyways, I think I've spent enough time with TikTok. So I believe that's I'll call it a day, but let me know if you like these. Hopefully you don't, so you will not comment, you will not share, and you will not ask me to make more. Thank you very much for watching. Number one, say remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.